In this lesson, we're going to take a look at filters and masking. We're going to kind of combine two really critical components of Photoshop into one lesson. All right, I'm going to open up a image here, and it's called Roll 2051. Okay, that's our image. And let's just zoom in here. And what we're going to do is create a really common effect that's done by photographers in a fashion model sequence. And we're going to give this picture some action. Now, to give this action, what we're going to be doing is actually doing this on multiple layers. And that gives us a lot of freedom and a lot of control. Okay? So to do this, what we're going to do is, first of all, take this layer, this background layer, click and drag this down and duplicate the layer. Okay, so now I have two copies, one on the bottom and one on the top. And what I'm going to do is go ahead now and rename this top copy Blur. Okay, so this is going to be the blurred layer. Now the blur I'm going to be using is under Blur, it's under Radial Blur, and by default we get this kind of crazy radial blur action. Okay, so it rounds everything out. Instead, I'm going to choose Zoom, and I'm going to put it right about where I think her head is. Okay, so let's just see kind of what this looks like. We'll say OK. We'll see if it's in the right area. Actually, I want to go a little bit higher, so I'll press Control-Z to undo, and we'll just apply that again. Okay, so we're going to go up, and we'll give it a little bit extra. Okay, so now I've got this completely blurred image, right? But what I want to do is reveal some of these crisp features. I think her jacket looks really cool. Her face, obviously, we don't want to blur. And there's a little bit of that going on here in this image. So how do we get the best of both worlds? Well, what I'd like to do is take some of this blurred image and essentially erase part of the image here that I want to keep. Let me get a bigger brush. I'm making bigger brushes by using the bracket keys, which are next to the P key on your keyboard. And I want to essentially just erase part of this image. But here's a problem. What if I want to put some of this back? I can't. I've erased it. It's gone forever. So instead, let me teach you a different technique. Okay, let me undo this couple steps. A technique called masking is one of the most important techniques to learn as a Photoshop artist. And this will be the basis of really problem-solving a technique without actually brute forcing pixels to be erased or painted back. So for example, what we're going to do is we have the bottom layer turned off. It's very important you have this turned off so you can really see what's happening. And I'm going to select the blurred layer, and I'm going to click on this third little icon down here, which is called the mask tool. So I'll click here, or the layer mask. All right, notice it's white. And notice my paintbrush is white. The color right here that I'll be painting with is white. So if I click and drag, I actually get black. Why do I get that? Well, let me undo this. It's because I'm using an eraser. Let's not use an eraser. Let's get out of the habit of using an eraser. For me, professionally, I very, very, very rarely use the eraser. So instead, I'm going to use this paintbrush, and I'm going to click and drag, and I get nothing. And a lot of first-time artists who are using Photoshop, they go to this and they go, wait a minute, it worked with eraser. Why didn't it work with the paintbrush? Well, it's because we're painting with white on a white background. Yeah, that's not going to work. So let's flip these colors over. So I'm going to click this little arrow, and now I'm going to be painting with black. And now when I click and drag, it erases or masks part of this image out. Okay, which is awesome. That's what I want. Well, what if I say, okay, I'm going to paint out her knee, and I'm like, oh boy, you know what? Actually, I wanted part of her knee gone. Not a problem. Because I'm painting with black and white, all I have to do is flip my colors, and now when I paint that image right back in, and that's exactly what I'm after. Okay? Now, just by doing this little bit of effects here, look what happens when I turn on my background layer. I get a beautiful, beautiful effect. Let's go ahead and paint some of her knee back out. Okay, and we've got some nice action here on her clothes, on her face. And we got all of this very, very easily by utilizing the masking tools. Okay, so again, you just take your image, duplicate the layer, select the third option, which is a mask, a layer mask, and then use black and white paintbrush to paint areas that you want or don't want. So again, this is what it looks like without. Here's the original. Here's the top layer that's got the blur effect. And because we've masked out the inside here, that's transparent, anything that shows up behind there comes right through. And it's just a great way of controlling effects and your layers.